Alice was 22 years old as I approached her lying in a hospital bed. She had bags under her eyes and she looked tired, but she had this huge grin on her face. She was wearing a powder blue polka-dotted robe with matching fuzzy blue slippers. She had just given birth to the sweetest baby boy. 7 pounds, 6 ounces, 21 inches long. With a tuft of dark brown hair atop his head, he was the vision of newborn goodness. Her husband sat in the corner of the room as the two of them talked about all the research they had done about breastfeeding. They talked excitedly about this breastfeeding class that they had taken during her pregnancy. They had prepared for breastfeeding similar to the way some women prepare for childbirth. They were committed. They knew the benefits of breastfeeding, and they wanted their baby to breastfeed for as long as possible. I was in my junior year of nursing school at the University of Connecticut, and I knew for a long time I wanted a career working with moms and babies. My professors encouraged me to find shadowing opportunities with people working in women's health, and I happened to have a family friend, Heather, who was a lactation consultant. So I set up a day to shadow Heather as she worked a shift in a local hospital, consulting with new moms who may need some help with breastfeeding. We had a bunch of consults that day, spending a half hour to an hour with each new mom in the labor and delivery unit, answering questions and providing support to those who were trying to breastfeed. I watched Heather as she helped Alice with a few different feeding positions. The position of the baby and the breast is key to getting the baby to latch properly. The most important part of successful breastfeeding is the latch. If the baby isn't latched properly, the mother's milk isn't properly stimulated, the baby doesn't get as much milk, and breastfeeding can be painful. Sometimes the baby latches with little to no effort, but most of the time, it's a learning experience for both the mom and baby. Such was the case with Alice, and her experience was not uncommon. The baby was having difficulty latching, and she was growing increasingly frustrated. As the time went on, the baby got more irritable and hungry, and Alice grew more and more distressed and anxious by the minute. I watched Heather as she remained calm, and by working with Alice through a few different feeding positions, they were finally able to get the baby to latch. But Alice wasn't so sure. She would say things like, "I don't think he's drinking. I don't think he's getting anything at all." Soon she started to cry, and the baby started wailing. Of course, around that time, the doctor comes in, and the first thing he asks is whether the baby has eaten anything yet. This is one of the major indicators of how well the baby is doing, but his timing couldn't have been more off. His question sent Alice into a tailspin. She cried harder and said, "I don't think he's drinking. I don't think he's getting anything at all." The entire healthcare team assured Alice that this is normal, that it just takes time and we would keep working at it and eventually it would get easier. We left and made some rounds, returning a few hours later to help Alice. But this second session played out much in the same way as before. And Alice gave up. She refused to keep trying. "Just give him the bottle. I can't do this anymore. Just give him formula. I have no idea if he's getting anything. I want to know exactly how much he's drinking, and we can't go home until he eats." Later that day, I debriefed with Heather. We went over all the patients and their experiences. Some of them were successful breastfeeding. Some of them were on their second or third baby, and they made it look so easy. But I couldn't get Alice out of my head. I couldn't shake the feeling that there should have been something we could have done to help her. I asked Heather, "Why can't we measure how much breast milk is inside a baby's stomach?" I asked her if she knew. Did she know whether the baby was getting anything? She said, "I'm not so sure. We can count wet diapers or we can put them on the scale, but there's no real definitive way of measuring breast milk intake." And all I could think was, well, why isn't there? We're living in this advanced medical age where we can splice genes and we're using 3D printers to make organs, but we can't adequately measure how much breast milk is inside a baby's stomach. That night, I started to research. I needed to know, was Alice just one patient experiencing this, or are there more people out there like her with the same problem? I learned that 50% of women stop breastfeeding 2 weeks postpartum simply because of the anxiety and apprehension of not knowing how much breast milk their baby is receiving. Around 60% of moms don't meet their personal breastfeeding goals. And of the 84% of women that initiate breastfeeding at childbirth, only 25% exclusively breastfeed through 6 months, which is recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics. There's this drop-off. Why is there this drop-off? The benefits of breastfeeding are astounding. It affects the human's lifelong mental and physical development for both the mom and baby. There's a 72% reduction in respiratory infections, a 64% reduction in GI complications, a 15 to 30% reduction in obesity risk with each additional month reducing risk by 4%, and there's immunoactive components that help fight against allergies. This moment matters. If this moment isn't cared for, it has a lifetime of negative repercussions. It may seem like a small problem, one little latch, but it's an entire lifetime of opportunity. I'd like to say I woke up the next morning, solved the problem, and went on to save the world. But the truth is, I took this story, this idea, and this problem into the back recesses of my mind and filed it away for later. It wasn't until 1 year later, during my senior year, that it resurfaced, when we were taking a required course for all nursing students at UConn, a nurse innovation course. As a part of this course, we were asked to develop a business plan. And the thing is, nobody wanted to take this course. We were still students and we had limited bedside experience. We all kept saying, we came to nursing school, not business school. But when they asked us to come up with an idea that could improve the medical field and talk about the impact that it could have, I lit up. This idea was reanimated in my mind and I got really excited. It was like a flash of insight, and the time was right for me to really explore how to solve this problem. At most, I was hoping to get an A on the paper and ace the course. But the truth is, this flash of insight got me so excited that it went even further than just writing the paper. I developed an actual working prototype, a prototype for a device that can measure how much milk was inside a baby's stomach from the outside in a way that is safe, convenient, and accurate. If a mom is nervous about breastfeeding, she could see how much milk was inside her baby's stomach after a feed. And as she sees that her baby's getting adequate nutrition, her confidence grows. And as her confidence grows, breastfeeding continues and gets easier. At the end of our senior year, we were asked to present our ideas in a Shark Tank-style event, modeled after the popular TV show where investors are pitched innovative ideas. Our version of Shark Tank came complete with a judges panel who would choose a winner. And as the only student with a working prototype, I was feeling like a real badass. I was pretty proud of myself, actually. But the thing is, I didn't win. And when they announced the winner and it wasn't me, I'll admit I was pretty annoyed. How on earth could somebody else win? I was the only student with a working prototype. But the thing is, these feelings of annoyance soon turn into feelings of rejection and thoughts like, well, that's the end of the road for this idea. But I couldn't stop thinking about one of the judges on the panel, Kevin Booley, a distinguished UConn alum in business and engineering who kept pestering me with questions during my presentation. He asked me about market research and penetration. He asked me about commercialization and what that would look like. He hadn't asked me if I had done a patent search yet. Honestly, I had no idea what half the things he was saying, but he seemed really smart and intelligent, so I started to wonder why he was so curious. So I found his email address and I reached out to him. I wrote him this email. I felt kind of silly doing so, but I figured I had nothing to lose. He wrote back to me, and he was excited to hear from me. We decided to meet the next day over coffee, and when we sat down, we talked for a really long time. He said to me, you know, nurses can be innovators and entrepreneurs. I felt in this moment like this was a life-changing conversation. It opened up a completely new pathway that I didn't even know existed. And I left that meeting with a plan. And I spent the entire next year making my idea happen. I formed an LLC called Lactation Innovations. I found a team of lawyers to help me file a provisional patent. I submitted my first grant to the NIH, which was a very difficult experience. I learned what it meant not only to have an LLC, but to be a CEO. I learned how to network and how to keep the company alive, and I did that all by myself. In 2018, I hired a COO to take over some of the operations side of the business. I needed somebody who was savvy and intelligent about the things I'm not so savvy and intelligent about. I found that in Jamie Coates, who's actually in the audience with me today. She has brought medical devices to the market before, so this isn't her first rodeo. She has become my mentor, my friend, and my co-founder. Together, we have bootstrapped around $15,000 to create this device. Bootstrapping is when you raise money not through venture capital funds, but instead using existing money and grants. This has allowed me to retain full ownership of my company. We have retooled our device through a series of testing and analysis to make it more accurate. Our initial testing indicates that it's far more accurate than competitors, and it does not require calibration, solutions, or adhesives. We have also filed our non-provisional patent with the US Trademark Office. We renamed the device Manula, a Greek term of endearment for mother. And I've done all of this while being a full-time registered nurse in the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit at Connecticut Children's Medical Center, and while being a full-time master's student at Regis College with the goal of becoming a primary care nurse practitioner. And I'm just getting started. Right now, we are continuing to retool the Manula device for accuracy and working towards developing the alpha prototype. In 2020, we'll submit our alpha prototype to the FDA for approval. And in 2021, we'll deliver a fully commercialized product to the public. I am a nurse, but like many who've come before me, I am not just a nurse. I am a scientist, I am a CEO, and in each role, I am changing the health outcomes for my patients. As nurses, we sit at the intersection of human intelligence and human conversation. What is the problem that humans are having, and what is the technology that will solve that? I want to say something to all of you, and my hope is that you'll take it with you long after this moment here today. Your human impulses and your desire to serve is something that you should pay attention to. There is no profession better positioned to revolutionize the way that healthcare is delivered than a nurse. As a child, I wanted to be an actuary. An actuary is a business person that deals with the management and measurement of risk and uncertainty. Not many people know what an actuary is, and to be honest, I have no idea how as a child I even know what an actuary was. But in hindsight, I think I always knew my life would be about measuring things, about quantifying things that are difficult to quantify, and doing so for the most precious and vulnerable amongst us. In closing, I have 5 truths that I'd like to share with you all, lessons from my short but really exciting nursing career. 1, what you love matters. 2, follow your questions wherever they may go. 3, rejection is just a change in direction. 4, the right team makes everything smarter, better, and faster. And 5, if not you, who? Thank you.